Now, something we're going to get into much later is layers. You can draw on layers. You can say make a new layer, and it's an untitled layer. It's recording now, so I can go through here and I can paint red. Let's go ahead and turn on X symmetry here. So we can go through and we can paint this red layer color, put on a little vest for him. Then once we're done with that, we can just tap on the layer, and now we can go through and we can make opacity changes here. And you can even overcrank it. If we were doing geometry, you could see it overcrank, but for RGB values and information, it won't do anything. So you can save RGB information and masks over here in your layers. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this eyeball off, and we'll just hit Bake All. That'll clear my layers out. Of course, all an eraser would just be sampling this background color with the C key, and then just going through and just killing all this. And if you want to knock this down and start doing some maybe some rework on it, what you can do is crank your RGB intensity down. Instead of doing a layer opacity, you can drop your RGB intensity down with your background color selected, then go to Color Fill Object and just keep touching that until it gets knocked down enough, and then you can go in here with your darker color or your corrective color or whatever you want to do. If you want to start doing an actual sketch, you can go through here and you can zoom in, and now you can start crank our RGB intensity back up, and now you can start going like sketching over. You're going to see in here it gets a little bit weird because we're doing some wacky stuff with our geometry. If you've ever done that and you want to just take this color information to a fresh piece of paper, let's say, let's position it on our canvas. And there's a couple different ways to do this when we get into capturing custom alphas and stuff, or tiling materials, or tiling textures. We'll be a little bit more fancy than this, but what we're going to do basically, we'll go ahead and turn our floor plane off. We're going to go out of edit mode. We're going to click our simple brush here, and in our simple brush we have mRGB Z grabber. So I'm just going to drag that over our object here. You can use the spacebar to reposition it, and then we can just capture. There's our depth grab. Ignore that for now, just turn that off. This is the texture right here. So now we can just hit Control N to clear our canvas. We can grab a brand new plane here, drag it onto our canvas, go into edit mode. Oops, sorry, make polymesh 3D. We'll go ahead and select that off-white color. Color Fill Object, and then now that we have this texture available to us, let's go ahead and grab that standard clone brush we made. We can grab drag rectangle and that texture, and of course we're going to need some more geometry. Turn off smooth modifier, divide this up, and now you can just drag this image out. You can hold down shift to constrain it if you want to, and if you want to make a couple different copies, you can just hold down shift and constrain it, and then just drag out a few copies. Or you can even delete lower and then just do a quick mirror and weld, and that'll mirror over a copy for you. And if you want to do some like ideation, let's go ahead and divide this back up. We can just drag him out in the middle, or we can even turn on X symmetry and drag him out and see if anything comes up, like kind of a little alchemy kind of shape thing, or X and Y symmetry here. See if anything kind of pops out at you as far as something cool. Or you can just put an image right down through here, delete lower, and then just do a quick mirror and weld in whatever direction you want, and then continue drawing. And if you ever want to just flip your canvas completely, remember you have access. Oh, mirror and weld obviously is a geometry modified topology mirror and weld. You can also go down here to deformation, and you can mirror across the x-axis, which is going to be the same, or you can mirror across the y-axis and flip this up and down. Now let's go ahead and we'll tap C to grab this color, and then we'll do another color fill object. Oh, you can also color fill object with the texture selected. This one happened to fill upside down. You can just rotate your canvas around, or underneath your texture, you can go ahead and select it, and you can go in here and you can flip it vertically. So now if you go to color fill object, you can go ahead and fill that texture onto your polyplane here. Alternatively, you can also go over here to your texture map. You can load up any texture. And if any part of your texture is pure black, it's going to show up transparent. That's something we'll talk about when we get to Spotlight in just a minute. We'll go ahead and choose this one here. And because we mirrored and welded this object, it's going to come in mirrored and welded, because when we mirrored and welded, the UVs got mirrored, so that's why it looks like this. But if you don't mirror and weld, it'll just look just fine with your texture on. And then underneath the poly paint, you can go poly paint from texture, and that'll transfer your texture information. It'll turn the texture off. And now your texture is applied to your object, and now you can just go through here, and again, you can hold down shift, and you can smooth out this RGB information. You can go through here, and you can paint on it, whatever you want to do. Or again, you can sample from here if you want to just make some changes and just sample from these. But what I wanted to mention was color, fill object. And if you ever have a texture grabbed and it's like, you know what, I wish it was an alpha, you can take a texture and go make alpha, and now it's an alpha map. So you can now go in here. Let's go back to BTS for our transpose smart mask. We'll go ahead and load up that new alpha we made, and then we can just drag that out. Now in alpha land, white is opaque and black is transparent, so that's how it's drawing in. So we can invert that, and then again we can just go through here and we can kind of brush through, but we're not going to get a great result, obviously. So what I would do is, with that alpha selected, number one, you could paint it in a pure white to black or black to white and get a better result off the bat, but you can go in here to alpha under modify. Here we go. Change the contrast, and then we can go ahead and hit this little invert button. You can even tile it horizontally or vertically if you want to. If you want to drag out like, and you know what? Let's leave our standard brush alone and go back to that standard one clone that we made. So we can do a drag rect with this alpha. So go ahead and crank up that intensity a little bit, that contrast a little bit. You can even go in here to alpha adjust and use it like a levels. There we go. So there's a pretty good silhouette. And now that you have that alpha available to you, we'll go back to BTS. Now we can place these a little bit easier. And now when we drag this out, we can use our spacebar. And if you want to, you can squash it a little bit. So if you want to make little fat versions, you can do that. But now you can drag out a bunch of different copies. If you want to drag out multiple, hold down Control and then Shift. And that'll drag out multiple copies here. And now you can use this as like a quick character sheet to go and do variants on.